Welcome back, everybody, to week number 9 of Stage 4 of the Quake Pro League, and our next matchup is going to be DaHanG versus ZenAku. So, a matchup that could potentially be a 3-0. That said, ZenAku has been definitely getting better and better. He's long surpassed that stage where it felt like he was getting used to the ping, he was getting used to just being in this setting, and I think he was really starting to find his feet. And once he has, the real, I think, climb of ZenAku has officially begun, and he's a lot better now in Pro League than he was at the very beginning. That said, DaHanG is undisputed number 2. I think it's still going to be a tricky match, isn't it?
It is going to be a very tricky match indeed. DaHanG so far has only lost one matchup in the entirety of Stage 4, and that was against Dewey a few weeks back. Of course, he still has the matchup, his toughest matchup, to go against Rafa next week, so that is going to be a banger of a match, but so far he's been playing extremely well. ZenAku, on the other hand, of course, actually managing to beat, I believe it was both Effortless as well as Genic so far, so clearly doing pretty well for himself, losing quite a few games against other players, but always keeping it close. This is something we see time and time again with these players who come out of challengers like ZenAku did. They managed to keep the games really close. They managed to take away one map, almost getting two, but then it always just seems to fall apart at the very end. Quake is a game that requires quite a bit of stamina. It requires endurance. You have to be really focused 10 minutes straight, and you get a very, very short break, a minute or so, and you've got to go right back at it. And that for 3 maps in a row. And just the experience, the endurance that I think some of these top contenders have still put a bit of a barrier in between someone of, say, ZenAku's caliber versus DaHanG.
And I mean, on that note, I mean, even matchup-wise, taking a look at the schedule, we can see what the picks and bans will be. It's Awoken as our first map. I mean, Awoken, incredibly popular at this stage, and it's going to be Ison from ZenAku and DaHanG rocking the Doomslayer. Molten Falls is our second map with the Slash versus Nyx. And then finally, Corrupted Keep. It's Ranger versus Galena. So it's really nothing's a massive curveball there. We know that DaHanG really likes to play on the Nyx, so seeing it on something like Molten Falls doesn't really surprise me too much. And then Corrupted Keep, we got Galena and Ranger, 2 picks that are, again, quite common on there. Nothing really against the grain, right? But I think it's a nice demonstration of what we can see maybe ZenAku bring to the table.
Yeah, these are good champions for both of these players to just showcase their skills, their entirety of their skill set and capabilities. There's no bans or anything that would really put either player at a massive advantage or disadvantage, so this is just going to be straight up skill versus skill. First map they were going to start off will be Awoken, map that we've seen time and time again today, very, very popular and commonly picked, where ZenAku is going to be playing the Ison versus DaHanG on the Doomslayer. So DaHanG, the American, will have a bit of a mobility advantage. Doomslayer is such a powerful champion, perhaps even the most powerful on this particular map, because that center area of the map is so important. And when you're playing Doomslayer, you have so many ways to get up and out of that area very quickly and easily by using, of course, that double jump. Also perfect tool to avoid rocket damage, but you do have to be careful about the lightning gun. On the other hand, Ison, of course, a champion with no specific movement capabilities to his name, but he does have the turret, and the turret can help him out tremendously in these tight situations. 1, because it can give you a lot of information about where your opponent is at, and 2, if you can put one down just before a crucial fight, your opponent has to deal with 2 sources of damage at the same time, which can really give you the upper hand. So this should be a pretty balanced match. ZenAku, he's got more of the damage, he's got the better suitability of just manifesting himself and hold down the map, but is DaHanG who's got most of the mobility.
Now, prediction-wise, I think the safe bet really is that DaHanG will be able to secure a 3-0 today and really just continue the spree of lots of points and a high leaderboard placement for DaHanG if he's able to beat ZenAku. But I really think that as we go into, again, the later stages of Stage 4, what we really need to look at with ZenAku is really him on a map-by-map basis. If he can take even one map today versus DaHanG, I think that alone will be, I think, maybe good morale as we move towards the finals, because it's unlikely ZenAku is going to be able to defeat DaHanG here, but if he can at least make him work for it and fight for it, it says a lot about his own personal growth within the Pro League, which has been something that I think ZenAku has been quite a key player in when we're looking at player growth.
And this is also just a very important map for ZenAku no matter what, right? He is barely out of range of relegation on the NA side of things. currently the 7th ranked player, with the 8th and, or the 9th and the 10th being at risk of relegation, so he's just barely a few points ahead of that. Starting things off, DaHanG's point of view, taking a few nasty rails right there. ZenAku immediately applying a lot of pressure, and DaHanG even feeling like he has to use the rocket jump to get out of that position, knowing that he is in no place to take a fight just yet.
Now, DaHanG, a player entirely known for his timing. His entire game plan is constructed around items. And on the note of items, pretty even split between the two of them right now. Like 1 second, if that, separating the two of them. But DaHanG making a play towards it. Spring some opening damage. Very minimal return there from ZenAku. And there is that 2v1 factor. DaHanG focuses on the turret, and it allows ZenAku to kind of slip by and take that heavy, unchallenged. Now, what do they do with it? DaHanG tries to be a little bit aggressive, push in, get that free rail shot. Nice little start. A lot more than that's needed, but it's definitely a good way to start things off. Surprises him and catches him on the multiple sides. This is the strength of Doomslayer. Yep. The fact that he can take these other angles without having to really give away too much information as to where he's going.
Other champions could do that too, but then you need to do something like a rocket jump to position yourself ahead of your opponent. And of course, you take some self-damage and you won't be able to fire right off the bat, which is something that you can easily do with the Doomslayer. So the mobility coming out strong. ZenAku having a stack advantage right there, but DaHanG, 2 beautiful rails, is instantly going to shut that down. Still though, no solid rotation for either players. Very little time between the items. DaHanG, even getting that first frag of his, didn't allow him to set up full control. He should be able to tie another one into this, string them both together and tie a bow tie into it, as he is now 2 frags in the lead. ZenAku caught out in a bad position. The Australian has to make a run for it. Doesn't have a railgun, has nothing for long distance fights.
And ZenAku no choice but to rocket jump to try and just save his skin for a little bit. Unfortunately, just delaying the inevitable right there, because he goes down anyway. DaHanG in full control of Awoken so far. The turret's going to get dropped down, but to no real success, just in time for the light to get soaked up by DaHanG. And the fight towards Heavy, likely to take place. I don't think DaHanG is going to let him take this one for free. He's going to make him fight for it. Now, he's looking for which angle does he go. Perfect decision. He actually gets the perfect read and the second rail to punish. Definitely made a play on the Heavy, but it wasn't on the Heavy itself. It was where ZenAku was going to retreat to afterwards that DaHanG was just 1 step ahead in.
So far, DaHanG, 50% railgun accuracy. Most of his damage coming from that weapon alone. Nearly half of his damage, actually. Whereas ZenAku has only landed a single railgun shot. And on a map like Awoken, where there's a lot of these nice angles that DaHanG just keeps exploiting, that is such an important weapon you need to have a good hold of. Because every single time ZenAku even manages to pick up the Heavy, DaHanG is there. And he lands at least 1 railgun that takes away most of that item instantly. Good play from ZenAku there.
Oh, even more of it from DaHanG though. Still continuing. Oh dear, that nail hurts. And that 1 nail alone, I mean, ZenAku, is he going to try and maybe deny this Heavy? Not his choice to make. Just trying to stay alive, survive a little bit. Now, this is this really, I think, is the most dangerous point. That now, the frag on ZenAku is going to happen, but that 1 frag, and then the pickup of the Mega, has officially given DaHanG the entire cycle of the items. This is normally the point where DaHanG becomes unbeatable for a lot of people in the Americas. He gets the perfect rotation. He's even, as you can see, starting to build the light into his rotation as well. He will starve you of everything on the map, and then, I mean, how do you break that cycle? If you're already struggling to get even a single frag here, how do you stop this momentum that he's now feeling?
Absolutely. And DaHanG, widely considered to be one of the greatest timers in all of Quake, meaning that he has got such a good sense of when an item is going to spawn, and he can keep a track of them to half a second, 0.1 of a second even. And that just allows him to put such a tight net on these pickups that ZenAku, it's got nothing going for him right now, and this is, as you mentioned, typical DaHanG. I'd say it's typical Liquid playstyle, something you see from Rafa as well. Relatively slow start very often, but then just... he's a diesel engine, you know? Once he gets going, he runs it a mile and then some. And now, even when ZenAku manages to pick up the Mega, Still getting punished by DaHanG. Luckily for the Australian though, the rail came through just before he picked up the Mega, but he will still take another one, meaning that that item is basically gone for already.
I still love the fact that DaHanG almost never uses the zoom on his rail. You just never... Of all the players that we see in Pro League, I think he uses the zoom on his rail the least.
Yeah. Some players like to use it a lot. Gilson tends to use it a fair bit. Gilson also likes to zoom in when he uses the lightning gun. But definitely not every player he uses the zoom in as much. And you're very right in saying DaHanG is one of those who rarely, if ever, makes use of that function. These are good plays from ZenAku though. 2 solid rails. He should be able to secure himself heavy as well. But he needs more. I like the use of the turret right there. Probably should have thrown it up rather than just through instead.
The problem is that one Mega alone has made DaHanG able to be a little bit more confident with just his denial. Position himself with these rockets, even more damage that ZenAku just can't really distribute back. A rail is going to come through, and a second one to boot. Now DaHanG's on the run. Uh-oh. And that's a finish. And that's the strength of the turret. It distracts you, it keeps you busy, and then Ison can run in and finish the job.
Yeah, I think DaHanG knew that it was placed there, but maybe since like a full rotation had passed since he figured that ZenAku might have replaced it, just wasn't thinking straight about where exactly that ability was positioned this time around. But ZenAku, he's got a lot of work cut out for him. We're just hitting 7 minutes. Here we go. Good tribal LG on LG. ZenAku coming out on top. But
now,
still,
he
8
needs
frags.
8 frags, yes, quite rightly so. 8 frags in less than 3 minutes against DaHanG, under the impression that he's not going to get any more frags, remember. I still think this might be too much work. This will be one of the most incredible comebacks we would have seen, I think, in Pro League, if he can pull this off. But against DaHanG, it's going to be very difficult. Looking for even more rail shots.
Again, he hits it. How ketchup? And another. And another. I think DaHanG is playing Instagip, where he might as well be. And one more. And
That's
yet
5 in a
another.
row.
What is happening?
Give us a 6th. Go on, DaHanG, give us a 6th rail. You know, that's what he's looking for. Oh no, he's back to the super shotgun. That's cheating. That's cheating. Can't do that.
It's around 50% railgun accuracy from DaHanG. Up until this point, dealing nearly half of all his damage with the railgun alone. Now, same goes for ZenAku, but his accuracy is just drastically lower than his opponent's.
And now DaHanG, I think definitely 2 minutes of a victory lap. Just keep his execution on deck. Go for some of these stylish frags, perhaps. Hit those rails. Keep your health nice and warmed up. Keep your hands warm. But yeah, from this stage, I mean, DaHanG just controlled and dominated the entire map. There really is not much else you can say about it. He had better accuracy. He was in better positions thanks to that Doomslayer mobility. And in these fights, I mean, he just hit more damage. Looking for the combo. ZenAku's going to get another frag here. Better than nothing.
I like how DaHanG is just so confident in his railgun right now that he bounces his opponent up in the air at close range, and instead of going for another rocket, the shotgun, the lightning gun, which is what any normal player would do, he still whips out the rail for a little quick snapshot right there. And at this point, with a minute left to go, the 10 frag deficit, surely insurmountable by now. DaHanG shall be taking map 1. ZenAku maybe can start building himself at least a little bit of momentum towards the end.
But yeah, from this point for ZenAku, it's trying to get frags just like that one. You know, good calls on the retreat, nice little kind of reactionary rails to punish. Stuff that makes you feel like you're at least going to be able to go into the next map nice and ready to go at 100%. He's going to go for these big chases, these big pushes. The map by all means is finished. That LG from DaHanG was excellent.
And the double jump helping him out a lot as well. Also, DaHanG so far has hit 7 impressive medals, which you get when you land 2 railgun shots in a row. So that means that he's shot 14.
Throw down.
Those beautiful rails.
Throw down.
The 2 for 2. Yeah, even the punch goes his way as the American player Liquid DaHanG confidently, convincingly secured himself map 1.
And in convincing fashion, ZenAku started to get a few frags near the end, and I mean, anything to really keep his hands good to go for the next map, I suppose. But really, I mean, I think he had a really favorable pick, the Doomslayer, one of the absolute most meta champions on Awoken. The double jump is really important for all that. But then at the same time, I mean, he was just in those positions to hit those rails, hit those crazy good shots. When the fight happened up close, DaHanG had more accuracy. He was just all round, I think, a stronger player on that map. And that is, by all means, the first map done, as we now go into Molten Falls, which is our next pick. It's going to be ZenAku on the Slash, and then DaHanG going in with the Nyx. We do start to see, I mean, DaHanG, I think Nyx is one of his favorite champions, if memory serves. We see him play Nyx quite often.
Yeah, he definitely loves the Nyx. Same goes for the Strock, which is one of the champions that he basically popularized and brought into the mainstream. Yeah, pretty much. Even before it got that buff, DaHanG was already using the champion to great effects, usually in 2v2, but sometimes in duel as well. But right now he gets to play Nyx, as you mentioned yourself, a champion that he is quite renowned for. And this is going to be an interesting matchup because we've got two light champions going up against each other. We've got the Slash against the Nyx, so this could be very explosive. Both players pretty squishy, relatively low base stacks, so 2 rails are absolutely crippling. 3 will kill an opponent basically no matter what. So if DaHanG can keep this momentum going, continuously hitting these kinds of shots that he did over and over and over again, I mean, we saw it ourselves, 7 impressive medals. If you hit an impressive on a champion as small as Slash, she just disappears. She's obliterated from the map. Even if she lives, she's got nothing to work with and just has to scrounge for any resources whatsoever. So going to be quite challenging for ZenAku to deal with that.
So as we now go into Molten Falls, I think you've quite rightly pointed out, though, that I'm really going to keep an eye on DaHanG's accuracy in this map, because really, if ZenAku's... I don't think the kind of usual slash matchup, I don't know why that sentence was so hard to get out. Where you normally see a Slash kind of run rings around people on Molten. It's a pretty common thing that you can sometimes see. Don't see that happening with DaHanG. I can still see this map being pretty close because DaHanG is very disciplined, is very calculated. Whether it's going to be a dominant start, I'm not particularly sure. I can see both players being really careful. ZenAku is going to try and get those crazy angles at the very beginning, but I think DaHanG is going to be a lot more, I think, walk focused, right? Kind of just sticking his ear to the ground, listening out for where ZenAku is going to be, try and spring some of those traps. I think the safety net of the Ghost Walk, DaHanG is really good for that because he's already a calculated player that doesn't take these crazy risks, and now he's got a Ghost Walk, which they kind of go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
So you can be almost extra careful. But yeah, into the warm-up now. Looks like we're coming to a close. We're going into this second map. And we'll see if this champion difference might give ZenAku a bit of an edge here. If not, DaHanG, looking like he's going to be as disciplined as ever, I think.
I mean, if DaHanG can keep solid control of the hourglasses, which I think we can both assume that someone with his talent for timing items will absolutely be able to do, then ZenAku basically has to get 2 frags every single time. First, he has to burn out the Ghost Walk, and then he has to find his opponent again and finish off the Nyx. So very tall order going up against one of the absolute top players on the NA side of the Quake Pro League. Slow start. Neither player going really aggressively.
And this is the start of Molten Falls that you always grow to expect. Everything on the map being kind of far away from itself. That slow game of getting the resources, get the weaponry, and then we can start to make a play. First opening is going to happen from DaHanG, getting some excellent rails to start things off. And he's actually using it as an opportunity to be aggressive. The light's going to go into the favor of ZenAku, but DaHanG did a really good amount of opening damage that kind of just forced the disengage. Both players are going to meet towards heavy. Oh, he gets out. The rails don't quite hit their mark, but he gets a good call out on where ZenAku's going to escape. The plasma trail had to be used to save his skin. And this is where the movement comes in. You know, DaHanG, you can get the opening rails, but ZenAku will be able to disengage.
It's going to be important for ZenAku that he uses that plasma trail more often than he would usually feel the need to. Because DaHanG will be so reliant on those hourglasses, you need to be able to pick those up for yourself as well when you're ZenAku. Otherwise, your Nyx is going to have that Ghost Walk at the ready pretty much the entirety of the game, and that's never a situation that you want to be in. Lots of attempted rail shots from both of these players, neither really connecting all that much so far. DaHanG is the one to have done vast majority of the damage, but no really decisive engagements just yet. But that rail, that is going to help a lot. That gave DaHanG the stack advantage that he needed to just bully his way onto heavy. Doesn't even go for the item straight off the bat, but just tries to do a bit more damage in case ZenAku would have made the misplay of going for the railgun and the small armor there.
You might notice CNZ versus Cooler, how long it took to finally put a divide between the two items. It's taken half the time in this map. DaHanG has just hit so many shots and ZenAku's been forced to retreat. Wait a minute, time for a big moment perhaps? The Ghost Walk doesn't lead to anything here. Maybe a chance to take him by surprise, and DaHanG, having such a comfortable stack, could afford to take that fight. Heavy goes in the favor of ZenAku, but he takes a ton of damage in return, and it's damage that he can't give back to DaHanG. So he just simply, the Heavy's going to go down. And now DaHanG can push into this light and shut it down. DaHanG's looking to push out just a little bit before taking it in case he can really, I think, afford to get some of the armor back, but Mega goes to him again. I mean, if we're talking of control alone, DaHanG, he's only had a little bit more, but he's just, I think it's the damage more than anything else has allowed that stack difference to be as extreme as it is. They have very similar items. DaHanG only has a margin more than ZenAku.
We're still in the early stages of the map though. DaHanG finally finding his opponent out, missing a rail, very difficult shot too. This is an aggressive push. ZenAku, can he escape right now? Of course, he's got the speed that DaHanG lacks. Zooms right back into the room. I don't think he really wanted to do that. I thought he assumed that DaHanG was right on his tail, following him out. DaHanG just stood his ground, waited for his opponent to reappear, rather for himself to reappear. But still, no frags. This is quite remarkable. DaHanG has put down nearly 1,000 damage into his opponent already, and ZenAku somehow still alive.
DaHanG using this wall jump to sometimes try and stay one step ahead of where ZenAku's going to go. He's got a good handle on ZenAku's movement, but he hasn't been able to finish it yet, and that really is in a big part just how ZenAku can escape. The fact that Slash will out-mobility Nyx on this kind of map. This map is not particularly vertical compared to something like a Blood Covenant, for example. That's speed and I guess the wideness of this map, isn't it? Oh! Plasma Trail traded out for a Ghost Walk. DaHanG using that for information.
Good decision from DaHanG to use the Ghost Walk right off the bat. You very often see players hang on to it until they absolutely have to pop it. Oh, two beautiful rails there though, DaHanG.
Again, no scope.
Gets to read.
Like, no zoom.
No, again, indeed, he just refuses to use it. Maybe it's a matter of principle. He also just hates using any fancy skins or whatever. PLG is strong. The defensive rockets are brilliant. And ZenAku switching into the rail pulls himself right back up. You know that DaHanG is complaining to himself right now. Calling himself Tim. It's just how he is.
I mean, DaHanG has been in full control for a lot of this. It is surprising that ZenAku was somehow able to turn that fight around. DaHanG pushing in, manages to get the Mega. But he still can't tank a rail. He's got to be very careful. And with no rail in hand, it's not like he can look for an angle on ZenAku. Oh, he's got to be so careful here. He's playing a dangerous game. ZenAku not sticking around, though. Oh, he gets it just in time. Just in time, he gets the armor. Can he survive this? Is ZenAku going to look to keep the pressure on as we're going towards Mega? Sounds likely that he's trying to shut down, and yes, he is. Look, there towards Mega. Let's try and maybe take it away. DaHanG knows he's going to get beaten to it. Misses the rail. You know, that's a rail that he wanted to hit there. Wow.
Oof. Yeah, good shot from ZenAku. The Australian retaliating. After getting pummeled around by his opponent's rail the first map, he is definitely doing most of the damage. 53% railgun accuracy from ZenAku, forcing DaHanG up the bounce pad, making him use the Ghost Walk. Here we go. DaHanG caught in a bad spot. ZenAku, you can't let him go now. Getting a bit of a misread right there. Offensive rockets have to be brilliant, and indeed they are. DaHanG sending his opponent flying back once more, still keeping it to a one frag game.
Well, as long as it's a one frag game, either side has just as much of a chance to really pull this back. DaHanG's trying to get some damage. You got to watch out for that rocket jump. ZenAku didn't want to be super predictable, gets the SSG to finish. And now, 2 frags in the lead from DaHanG. Oh, no. Spawning on the rocket and just getting it around the corner. DaHanG makes it 1 extra frag there. Not a lot of work left now with ZenAku. No armor to play with. The light armor does get picked up near rail. That means ZenAku's going to have a rail now too. Oh, he gets the...
Okay.
Oh, hello. Hello indeed.
ZenAku needs extreme map and situational awareness to be able to go up against DaHanG using the Ghost Walk this effectively. First, getting caught out over at Rocket was already a bit of a mistake from his end. And then the invisible push from DaHanG, so aggressive, popping it so far in advance that there was no way that ZenAku could have heard him or caught sight of it. Good rails though, the Australian has an opportunity, but both players pretty low. DaHanG, 16 points of health. Can ZenAku get the read? Indeed he can. Shotgun comes out and clutches himself back into the lead. And with 2.5 minutes left on the clock, all the pressure is on the American.
Considering how explosive this map has been, it's surprising to see that it's only 3-2. You'd think there'd been a lot more frags, especially looking at the damage that's been dished out. 2,000 each way. But ZenAku has a large stack. We'll see if he can head him off. The light only just appearing here for DaHanG, who looks like he's going to be aggressive with the Ghost Walk again. Springs the trap and gets him mid-air. That is one way to start a fight and bring yourself back into things. Can he finish it? He can! Beautiful rockets from DaHanG. Fantastic stuff from the boy from Liquid. What a ridiculous turn of rockets.
That was absolutely phenomenal. You kept on expecting the next one to miss, but it kept putting out the damage. 20 here, 40, 50, and then just up the bounce pad to finish it off. Beautiful rockets. ZenAku taking a little bit of nails to the face right there. If we look at the item pickups, DaHanG definitely a bit of an advantage right there. Not an enormous one, but more megas and heavies to his name than his opponent. And he's manifesting himself on mega again. And this is the typical Liquid long play. DaHanG knows, even though he has a slight stack advantage, he doesn't want to go for anything just yet. He's got all the time in the world because it's a tied game. 1 minute left on the clock. He's just looking for that one situation where he lands the better rail, comes out with the higher stack, almost landing both of those. It would have been beautiful. And then he can just pop that Ghost Walk and go aggressive with the invisibility.
Both players are going to have this rail 1v1. Tribolt says no. I've had enough of this. At this rate, we're going to go into a sudden death. At the very least, one frag to decide it, I think. DaHanG, timing the lights. I think maybe thinking it's going to appear. Yeah, look. You would think maybe he timed it with the denial, but potentially not. As now the heavy's going to come back. And at least he's been able to recuperate.
ZenAku did DaHanG reappear right there. So he knows that the Ghost Walk has just been used, but look at there only being 10 seconds left on that cooldown.
Yeah.
DaHanG just eating up all of the hourglasses. ZenAku, aggressive, risky push. And with 10 seconds left to go, this might as well be the overtime.
I do hope that ZenAku is actually aware of just how many hourglasses he picked up. Oh no! No! DaHanG from the shadows is right. The Ghost Walk, the hourglasses at the last minute to allow that sequence to take place. DaHanG, I mean, that kind of play is why he is top 2 in the Americas, because he's got the clutch, he's got the decisions. Like, he is a very disciplined player, but when the time comes for a big play, he's not afraid to make it. And look at that.
Yep. Same aggressive play in the exact same situation as we saw towards the beginning as well. Exactly the same angle. ZenAku looking up over at Heavy and then just DaHanG out of nowhere, swooping in like a selfie owl, completely invisible, reappearing right on top of his opponent, doing a bit of damage with the invis, and then just also just following up with some beautiful rockets. ZenAku was not prepared for that. But of course, he was in a very difficult position, because what do? If you even get the slightest hunch that your opponent is going to try something like that, leaving the room may seem like an obvious decision, but doing so means that DaHanG gets to keep Heavy completely uncontested when it's overtime, when your opponent already has the momentum and the stack advantage. So there comes a point where ZenAku has to put his foot down and say, this is where I try to either kill him completely or just put myself back in a driver's position. And unfortunately for him, DaHanG's Ghost Walk push just was a bit too much for him to handle.
So our final map looks like it's going to be Corrupted Keep with DaHanG rocking the Ranger. ZenAku's going to be going in with the Galena. But it's... I mean, ultimately, ZenAku, he is playing well. It's just that DaHanG, in those really vital moments, he's just getting that one extra shot. And even when it comes to like something like a rail, for example, ZenAku, I think the rail was absolutely his star weapon, like without question. Yeah. It's just DaHanG's ability to really play around that crazy movement, be incredibly disciplined, and just up until that final play. I think for me, the standout moment was that rocket fight, where he just absolutely bounced him around like a pinball and got that final play near heavy. Not even counting the ghost walks. It's just a lot of brave moments from DaHanG that he does it because it's 100% calculated. And he believes in it, so he'll do it. I know he doubts himself quite a lot, does DaHanG, especially when he makes some misses an easy shot or makes some kind of mistake, and he beats himself up for it. But he is such an incredibly smart player that sometimes I wish he didn't hang himself up on those kind of small errors. I guess the search for perfection, you will do that, but
yeah. This time around, though, it is Corrupted Keep, the only map in the pool without a railgun, so ZenAku's star weapon is unavailable to him, but that might also be a blessing given how absolutely phenomenal DaHanG performed with that weapon on map 1. ZenAku immediately taking a fair bit of damage, having his first totem cleaned up as well. All he had got to work with is the rockets and a shoddy. That's gonna be a nice little chunk of damage. Will he go for the lightning gun? He knows it's risky. I like the decision from ZenAku right there, playing it a bit more passively, not going onto that Mega, or the LG rather, straight away, because he knows if he gets caught behind the teleporter right there, he's in so much trouble.
DaHanG keeping the timing as expected, as now he's going to get that heavy in hand. A lot of time before Mega spawn, so this is an opportunity to maybe get some of that information. Neither player has a complete gauge on where they are. Looks like DaHanG did manage to just quickly catch ZenAku, caught sight of that Galena model. And we can start to play that ranged game. For now, DaHanG definitely in a better position towards the Mega. Right as it spawns. I like this. I like this a lot.
Yeah.
That's the Ranger effect right there.
It's one of the reasons why a lot of people like Ranger on this map. He doesn't get picked all the time, but when people do play him, it's not because it's such a layered map, but it is because both of the items are basically in reach within one another. So using that orb in a clever, strategic manner can easily get you both of the items almost all the time. Like, look at that. There's 2 seconds between these 2 items. 2, barely 3. That means that DaHanG took absolutely no time getting from one to the other, giving ZenAku zero opportunity to steal either of those.
And now it looks like he's putting a delay in between the two of them. And I think that delay is actually going to make it so ZenAku, I think he's lost timing on the heavy after that. Because he definitely wasn't far enough away. Oh, that rocket was actually almost a ring out with the height that he was able to catch on DaHanG. But the orb was able to save his skin. Always love seeing that. Face tanking the totem just to get rid of it. And that's the delay in play. It now means that he's able to go towards heavy. And he's jumped down. He's quite early, is ZenAku. I think that delay really messed with him. Now ZenAku wants to get out of there.
This is the moment in the map for ZenAku. DaHanG, for the first time, has established full control, a nice rotation, 15 seconds in between the items. If he lets his opponent run away with this, we're gonna see that liquid runaway effect, the long game. DaHanG just setting up so strong and just starving his opponent from resources. So ZenAku, he needs to thwart that plan. He needs to prevent DaHanG from getting too comfortable and just cycling the items, playing his own game. And it needs to happen before DaHanG gets that inevitable 4 to 5 frag lead.
Opening things up like that is definitely not the way you do it. ZenAku in a spot of trouble here. I mean, because DaHanG has absolute flawless timing, ZenAku is never really able to be on one of these items to take it away from him. And the damage isn't being returned either. So DaHanG's doing all of this damage that ZenAku can only get a basic stack back up. That's an easy finish and no damage dealt, really, right as the heavy gets taken. ZenAku, not particularly confident he's been able to listen to that heavy being picked up. Didn't even manage to pick up a rocket because he was too far away.
This is exactly what I was talking about. DaHanG getting into the swing of things. ZenAku barely able to get his hands on a weapon as he gets shot down time and time again. One of the main reasons why Corrupted Keep is such a snowbally map where you can really just pull a chain of frags together is because there is no railgun. It's a small map, no rail, and rail tends to be that one go-to weapon if you're trying to get back into control, because you can do such effective chip damage from a distance, and if you don't have access to the weapon, what can you do? Use the heavy machine gun, sure, but that makes it so much more likely that you're going to be taking damage in return as well. Now ZenAku wants to make the best out of the super shotgun, but putting himself a bit too far out there and then just hesitating on the drop down. I think he had an opportunity to steal away Mega at least. He just stuck to the high ground and lost another frag.
Now we have hit that 5 point, the point that you were concerned about, being able to really run away with things. I mean, DaHanG hasn't been able to keep a massive stack in comparison to how things were a couple of minutes ago. So ZenAku, always the chance he can bring one of these fights back, but Dire Orb's always going to be a threat. And the timing. DaHanG's always going to have that extra little bit of stack to come back because he's going to be in position for the item, and he's probably going to take it.
Yeah, and of course he's playing Ranger. He's playing it to perfection, using that orb both very aggressively to deal damage, like you saw just there, but also just using it to steal away items. Yeah, DaHanG's Ranger play has been phenomenal this map.
He orbed in between the two totems, took damage from neither, took the heavy, and ran away. What a stud.
Now ZenAku does secure Mega, but jumping out of that room perhaps a bit too aggressively, getting pinned right back. And here we go, that famous self-restraint, the discipline that DaHanG is showing. He could have just pushed in aggressively, rocket jumped up, gone through the teleporter, but instead he just looped around and went for the instead. ZenAku had no business chasing the item when he was that weak, and doing so got...
I mean, we had a delay pretty much within the first minute or so of this map. And the moment that delay has been in between these two items, it has been the DaHanG show. Tries to go in for a rocket, runs out of ammo a little bit, so there is an actual potential here for ZenAku. DaHanG definitely took more damage than I think he was comfortable with in that situation, and he's able to get the heavy at the same time, keeping the string of these items together, and he's taking a lot of damage.
Oh, looking at the weapon pickups says it all. DaHanG has picked up 21 major items. Guess how many ZenAku has? Three in the entirety of 6.5 minutes. He only managed to pick up 2 heavies and 1 mega. DaHanG now has everything else. 22 majors. That just shows how incredible this player's control is. He will give one up to ZenAku Writer, but it is of course all part of the master plan. As long as he can stay in control, he has no issues doing something like that.
And his ability to do enough damage in a short space of time and completely neutralize the armor that was given there by ZenAku. DaHanG now significantly outstacking, and he not only steals, but ZenAku finishes himself off now, -1 to 9. Yeah, I mean, that's if anything, that's just going to punch your morale down a step, isn't it?
Also, just looking at the LG accuracy, ZenAku at just 21% versus DaHanG's 46. The man's Ranger play is phenomenal, his LG is on point, the timing, the items, everything is going his way. ZenAku finally getting his first frag. Unfortunately for him, it will only get him back to the default 0 position, as DaHanG just instantly shuts it down, knowing that he did enough damage that ZenAku would still be weak and really a lot of engagement, pushing in confidently with the super shotgun, and further frag for the 10-0.
And at this point, I know we talk about the comeback being possible, but considering it's 10-0 and how DaHanG is looking, I am not particularly confident, I have to say. And this has just been DaHanG showing us really what he does best. Control, timing, and efficiency, all of it combined. And then you just chuck his accuracy on top. And he's just so efficient in combat. And now less than 2 minutes to go. ZenAku really gave DaHanG a bit of a challenge on a couple of maps, but I think this map definitely not so much. I feel like one of the big factors definitely the removal of the rail. ZenAku, like the rail has been his star weapon the entire series. And on this map, I mean, DaHanG's, you said it earlier, you said it yourself, the use of the orb to relocate. I mean, that first use of the orb allowed DaHanG to get that early cycle pretty much within the first minute, and the rest of the map, up until about a minute ago, was that complete cycle being unbroken.
ZenAku also just really not getting that much benefit out of his totems. He's used them to heal up a few times, but He only managed to get all 3 of them for that really big boost once, and that was only for or so. This should still be a frag for the Australian indeed. Will put himself on the board with another point. And there we go. Full totems, he's got the benefit, but I just haven't really seen him be able to make that much out of it.
And as we now go in here, all we can really talk about is just the current form that DaHanG seems to be looking at. This is always going to be a tricky matchup for ZenAku. It is no surprise that DaHanG has been able to win the way he has. It's good that ZenAku is able to get these kind of last-minute frags, but at this point, I think it's more that DaHanG, it just doesn't really need to, he doesn't have to mind, does he? In these situations, he's done all the work. He knows the map is done. This is just a matter of process finishing this map now, because the job is done. The job was done like 3 minutes ago at least.
Yet another 3-0 victory. This will be. ZenAku does manage to get himself at least some frags toward the end. He was 10-0 a minute ago, and now he's back down to 11-5. So clearly getting something done, but DaHanG will pummel any hope into oblivion. Not that there was any that late into the map. Well played to both players. ZenAku, he came close a few times. First map was just a wash-up because DaHanG's rail was just too oppressive. Map 2, a lot closer, came down all the way to the final frag. We went into overtime, ZenAku hitting a lot more shots with the railgun, definitely using that weapon far more effectively. But then came along the final map, and it was actually pretty early on that DaHanG just established control. We pointed it out. 22 major items to DaHanG, just 3 going towards ZenAku, and that was 7 minutes into the game, something like that. So that just shows how early DaHanG just tightened the screws and completely shut his opponent out of the map.
I always like watching DaHanG. I think DaHanG is definitely one of my favorite players to watch because of that. He's just so methodical the way he plays, and it is very calculated. You know, the accountant, that's the whole thing, the man of numbers. If it makes sense on paper, then by God, he'll do it. And then on top of that, you just have very strong fundamental skill. Obviously, he played Quake for a very, 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 very long time. And then he's just really good in combat. And again, I'll never forget during the 2v2 days where DaHanG was absolutely one of those star fraggers.
Oh, yeah.
So insanely good at getting those 30 frags, just being able to dish out the damage, while at the same time, you know, he's smart. He knows what all those small little details that other players might miss, DaHanG doesn't. And that's one of the things that really separates him from a lot of players. And let's not forget, you know, he's a dual champion and Quake champions in his own right. And he is a champion. And that kind of thing is why. But our next matchup, exciting times ahead. It's going to be the Maestro Showdown. It's going to be Razy versus Wenger. I already see in the rotation here that the picks and bans is a more accurate term. We're already going to see more of that Razy clutch, which is always a treat. I mean, before we go to break, do you have any sort of key notes about this matchup, mate?
I mean, it's a teammates going head-to-head, right? I asked Wenger in his stream how he was feeling about this one. He said overall pretty good, but generally speaking, it's actually Razy who manages to beat him when you look back at the Quake Pro League. Although in the Stage 3 finals, it was, of course, Wenger knocking his teammate out of the tournament. So Razy may be looking for a bit of revenge right there. But this is definitely going to be one of the highlights of today's matchup. This is going to be an excellent match.
I think Razy, if anything, he's just constantly spending all of this stage out for redemption, isn't he?
Yeah,
that is, I think the Razy effect is that he's looking to, I think, try and redeem himself. I'm curious to see whether he actually brings this up because, believe it or not, we have another interview ready to go with Freya. And Razy was interviewed this time round. We're going to cut to that, go for a quick break, set up this Maestro matchup. See you soon.